The Boardinghouse, Part 5 of The Raven, Revenge, and the Reckoning. The land stretched wide and empty 5 miles east of the train station. Nothing but pale hills and long grass, silvered by moonlight. I rode slow, reins slack in my hand. The night pressed in quiet around me. Buck was tired, and so was I. I found a break in the brush where a small stream whispered over some stones. A cottonwood leaned low like it had been watching the road for 100 years. That was enough. I dismounted slow, unsaddled in the silence. Gave Buck a quick rub down and picketed him out in some thick grass. There wasn't much. Cold camp, no fire, no dinner. I dropped my bedroll under the branches, leaned back against the base of the tree, and let the night take hold. The dreams came, as always, thin, sharp things, flashes of a man by a lamppost, the raven's call out in the hills, the sound of a train whistle, and a woman's voice I hadn't heard in years, and then the screams, always the scream. The scream jolted me awake. It was still dark, but the east was changing, just the faintest brushes of daylight starting to bleed across the sky. I sat up slow, rubbed my face with both hands, my back popped, my knees cracked, but the air was clean, cold, and still. Buck looked up as I approached. I pulled the picket pin and led him down for a drink. I was hungry, but decided to ride into town rather than try to cook something here. I saddled Buck without a word, tightening the cinch, slow, methodical. I paused with one hand resting on the horn, eyes looking east. I could keep riding, plenty of road left, but the old man's words were still sitting on my shoulders. Sonny, the thing about running is you always take yourself with you. The town appeared like a mirage, mist and chimney smoke starting to rise up. The sky turned orange at the edges, hooves clipped easy down the empty main street. Old wooden frame houses lined the road. And then there he was, same old man, same long gray beard, but the coat was different. At first I thought it was someone else. I looked again, sitting on a rocker outside the general store like time hadn't passed at all. I slowed to a stop without thinking. The old man looked up and smiled just a little, like he knew a secret. "You sleep all right?" he asked. I gave a half shrug. Didn't die, so there's that. He nodded. "Good place out there by that cottonwood. Not many folks camp there anymore." I stared at him. "You always know where a man lays his head?" "I don't have to," he said, "if the wind's right." We sat quiet a moment. "You got a name?" he finally asked. I hesitated. Killian's the name." The man didn't flinch. "All right, Killian." He looked up the street, gestured with his chin. "You hungry?" I didn't answer, but my stomach did. He smiled again. "She's got coffee ready. The Stranger's Rest, corner lot, 2 blocks over. The place is run by Miss Isabel." I exhaled slow, eyes narrowed on the rising light down the street. "Boardinghouse, huh?" "Yup," he said. "You'll know it when you see it." I nodded, clicked my tongue, and Buck started forward. And the old man, he just rocked once more in his chair, still watching. I followed the directions, slow, deliberate. The town was just waking up. Shutters creaked, a dog trotted across the street with nowhere in particular to go. I didn't know if I was going to stop. Told myself I'd ride past, maybe just take a look. Just a house on a corner, just a porch with a swing, just a smell of biscuits, maybe nothing more. But then I turned the corner and saw her. She was standing on the porch already, a dish towel slung over her shoulder, hair pinned back loose, like it had been done in a hurry. A coffee cup in her hand, eyes scanning the street in that idle way folks do when they're not really expecting anything. And then she saw me. She didn't move, didn't smile, just watched. Just in that measured way, like she was placing a card face down in her mind, waiting to see if it would be played. I slowed Buck near the hitching rail, but didn't dismount. I touched the brim of my hat. Politely, "Ma'am?" "Boardinghouse is open," she said. "Coffee hot. You look like you could use both." I nodded once. "Much obliged." I stepped down, the creak of the saddle groaning like an old man's bones. I tied Buck slow, then straightened and looked at her. She already turned to go inside, pushing open the screen door with her back. "Come on in," she said over her shoulder. "Sit a spell. I'll get something warm." "My name is Isabel. What should I call you?" "Killian," I replied. She nodded once and then closed the door. I stood there for a second longer, then followed. The kitchen was warm with the smell of coffee and biscuits, a faint hint of wood smoke still drifting in from the morning stove. I stepped inside, took off my hat, and stood there, till she motioned to his seat at the small table near the window. "Sit," she said. "Food's better when it's hot." I didn't argue, just sat down real slow, setting my hat on the floor beside me. "Here," she said, bending over and picking it up, and then hanging it on a peg by the door. "I'm sorry, ma'am," I said. She said nothing, just smiled. She moved around the kitchen in a practiced silence, plate on the counter, biscuits split with a knife, sausage and eggs forked onto the side. Honest food that smelled damn good. It'd been a while since I'd sat down at a table in a kitchen. Hell, it felt funny. She slid the plate in front of me and poured coffee into a heavy cup. "Cream or sugar?" "No, ma'am. Black's fine." I picked up my fork and started eating, quiet and slow, like a man who'd gone too many mornings with nothing. She leaned against the sink, sipping her coffee, just watching, not staring but seeing. It was a little unsettling sitting there eating with a woman watching me, something I wasn't used to. I finished my plate without leaving a crumb, sat back slightly, sipping the last of the coffee. "Thank you," I said. "That's the best food I've had in weeks." She smiled faintly. "Good. Would be appreciated." I gave a dry huff of breath that could almost be called a laugh, and then realized how long it had been since I'd even tried to laugh. She took my plate and carried it to the sink, rinsing it while the silence stretched. And then, somewhere between the running water and the sound of my chair shifting, it hit her. She dried her hands on the towel, turned slowly, studying my face again, like she recognized me. I noticed a shift in her gaze. "Something wrong?" I asked. She shook her head once, then said soft and even, "Did you ever go to school in Dodge?" I hesitated, just a flicker, then a nod. "Long time ago." "There was a boy there," she said, coming around the table, quiet, serious, the kind who didn't say much, but when he did, people listened. I looked down at my empty mug, my heart pounded. "We was poor, and I used to get teased at school. One day, when some boys started in on me, you stepped in and made them leave me alone." She sat down across from me. I never forgot that. I didn't speak for a moment, then whispered, I don't remember." "I didn't expect you would," she said. "It was probably just another day for you." She studied me again. Her eyes didn't waver. "But your name was Benjamin Burke." The air between us hung still. I didn't deny it. I didn't confirm it. Just stared out the window for a moment, then back at her. "I don't go by that name no more." "I figured," she said gently. "We all heard the stories about the trouble you got in down south." My heart jumped a little. "Don't worry," she said. "No one will ever know you were here." I breathed a little easier. "You're the first one who said my name in years where it didn't sound like a curse." She smiled just a little. "Maybe it never was." I was lying to her about remembering. I remembered every second of that day, the look on the boys' faces, the way she didn't speak, just looked at me with something like gratitude and fear tangled together. And now that memory felt like it was sitting between us, breathing all on its own. I pushed up from the table, chair scraped across the wood floor soft. "Thank you for the breakfast." I pulled some bills out of my pocket and laid them on the table. She opened her mouth to say something, maybe to stop me, but I was already at the door. I stepped out onto the porch, pulled a cigarette from my coat pocket, lit it with a match that flared hard in the morning light. She didn't follow. I stood there a while smoking, watching the street. Then under my breath, almost too low for her to hear, I said, "I do remember." I didn't explain. I didn't go back inside, but I turned my head to look, and she was smiling. I knew she had heard. It felt strange talking to someone who had known me from the old days, and I didn't know what to think about it. I flicked the ash off the edge of the porch, stepped off the boards, and walked slow toward Buck. The kid from the stable had brought out a bucket of oats, and Buck had finished eating. "Thank you, son," I said, handing him a few dollars. He smiled and took it, not saying anything. The day was stretching open. I didn't know where it would take me, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running. I untied Buck, swung into the saddle, nudged him with my heel, easing him onto the road, and headed east.